Hello, my friends. Welcome to Soul Cafe. We're so glad that you are here and glad that you can be with us midweek. I think we have a great show for you tonight. So let me pull in my good friend Aaron. And Aaron, how you doing this week?
I'm
How
good,
things going?
thanks. How are
Yeah,
you doing?
I,
Yeah,
I'm adapting.
Wednesday.
I just told you a
Adapting.
minute ago. I'm
Yeah,
adapting. I
yeah.
think this is a moment where you just have to kind of go with it day by day, adapt. You don't know what's coming. You don't know what's
True.
ahead. So, you
I
just kind of
admittedly
adapt.
thought it was Friday. And all of a
Now
sudden I was
you
like, "What's
you
Wednesday?"
you do lose track of days, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
So I've had some things recently. I've been doing a lot of presentations on national fora, so I could sort of schedule by that. And then
right,
Sunday comes and Wednesday comes.
right.
But if people don't have this stuff, I don't know how they,
Yeah. I
you know.
mean, how else would I know to shower and get dressed, Wednesday and Sunday.
Don't you do that every day?
Jim, we're in quarantine. Showering is not a necessity, it
Is
depends.
this a once a week whether you need it or not?
Yeah, I mean, Wednesday nights, I definitely do blow dry the hair, make sure I got a little mascara on. People can see me, but well, I do have Zooms a lot during the day, but people have gotten very loose and relaxed with what they expect to see on Zooms. I was podcasting with a client yesterday and a kid just came right in and interrupted the whole conversation and, people are just rolling with it. So,
Well, and I've noticed like people they've gotten to where they'll eat, they
yeah.
eat on Zoom or
Yep.
although I've seen you do that, so I shouldn't shouldn't
Yeah.
say, but they just
Right,
they
right.
just pay no attention. I was on a meeting the other day and this
Yeah.
guy he had his shirt off
Yeah.
and so somebody must have chatted him and he put his shirt on, which
Yeah.
was a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a different world. And I think that the weird thing is you're more on than you normally are in a meeting. So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well,
yeah.
and it's weird that, even like Wednesday nights, people don't realize like we can't leave our spot here for the hour that we're
No,
you're
no,
in tight
uh-uh.
for an hour.
No.
There's nothing you can do.
No,
And
you have to prepare
yeah,
before you come
gotta
on
kind of
screen.
make sure
You're
everything's in the right place.
gonna be here a while.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I don't
Although
know. The weather's helping me, so I'm feeling a
although
little.
you could if you texted me and you said, "Hey, I need to leave for a minute," I could
Well,
arrange
yes, we
that.
could always do that.
Yeah, I could do that, so
I have been on a few Zoom calls and meetings where you're trying to get the person's attention and they're so focused on the presentation they're not paying
yeah.
attention. You're like, stop talking, or this isn't the right thing. So yeah, it's kind of
So
funny.
I'm doing several webinars a week now for, the national organizations I'm presenting for, and one of them's it's 2 hours long from 11 to 1 on Thursday,
Wow. Yeah.
and it's a long time.
Yeah.
So, I take breaks. I'll say, "All right, folks, let's take a break." But,
Yeah.
you know, and people are on and off, and if you have a weight room, they're just
Right.
in and out the whole time, which I
Right.
get, but yeah,
Yeah. It's a whole
yeah.
it's a whole new world.
It is,
The
you really
meetings
have to
back and
adapt
forth.
to it,
Yeah.
but I'm adapting. I
Yeah.
think I don't want this forever, but, I think I'm good, and,
Yeah. We're getting there. We're getting
you know
outside now and kids are getting outside and playing,
yeah,
running around in the park and stuff like that. So, things are opening up whether
I know, whether
we're
we're
ready
ready or
for it or
not.
not. The government's about to do it, so may as well get ready.
So you like the cool weather or no?
I mean, I just like it being sunny, ish. And I don't love that we're still in the 50s and
Yeah.
60s. No, not at all. But I do like that. I mean, Saturday was beautiful.
Do you feel like fall keeps coming back?
It's
Like we
weird.
get
It
getting
does. And
spring and then fall
yeah,
comes and then spring,
yeah.
which confuses you even more. Not
Right.
only what day is it, but what
What
season
season
is it?
is it? What
Yeah.
month am I in? Yeah. And also because we don't know, I'm only ready for the heat if the pool's open. So
Right.
that's
Is that gonna happen
stressing
this
me.
year? They gonna open the pool?
I think my pool will eventually. I think most pools are looking out to the governor saying what's going on here, but I think most pools are probably going to try to do something. I don't know if they'll do it successfully, but I don't
Yeah.
know. I feel like it's time.
Well, I mean, how do you keep people paying their dues? And it's the same thing for every business.
Yeah.
It's a really hard conundrum. So we're going to talk about that a little tonight. We're going to have
Yeah.
I think a pretty major business and business owner that's in our church that's going to be here to talk about how they've had to adapt, and that'll be followed by our elders and talking about how they're having to make tough decisions in the life of our church and how they're focusing on this. And it's been an interesting process to get them to sort of draw in just how hard this really is. And
Yeah.
they've done a good job of doing risk analysis and thinking about what the future is. So we'll talk to them a little. So before we do anything, I want to make sure people know there is going to be a poll tonight, and the main reason I want to do that is because I think they're going to want to ask some questions of our elders. A lot of people will be on tonight just for the opportunity to hear them. So this is the poll for tonight. There's just one. So if you don't answer this one, you don't get to answer. That's the way it goes. But you will get to ask questions later, and you can do that by text to Jim Baucom 277 at 22333, and then you'll be asked to join. You can offer then options. And then the poll is also available at Pollev Jim Baucom 277. And for those of you who haven't done it yet, like who do this every week, you should download the app. It's just way easier. And once you have the app, it's easy to log into a poll. So people are starting to respond.
Yeah,
So,
look at that.
how desperate are you to get back in church? That's my question for you tonight. And we'll come back to this poll, and it's going to be up. So you guys can answer it whenever you want to as we sort of enter the rest of this. And we'll come back to it before we get to the middle part of our show. So just
Yeah.
keep answering the poll. You guys keep on there. And everybody get it? Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we're lucky to have Aaron with us tonight. Aaron
Yeah,
Torgerson,
Aaron
our Soul Cafe guy. So I sent out a little email to the whole congregation, and I said, you might want to be on because lots of people have been interested in how our elders are thinking. And I said, and of course, Aaron will be here to sing a sad, sad song. And
Yes.
and I got a response from Mandy. She said, "Oh yeah, Aaron's going to sing a sad, sad song." I said, we love this shtick, right? It's a happy guy, a really great guy
Yes.
singing a
He's got,
soulful,
he's got the right voice for it, and
right?
he's always
It's
got the right intention
soulful.
behind it, so it's good. I like it.
Yeah, it's soulful
Yeah.
because this is Soul
He's
Cafe.
healing, yeah.
So let's bring them in and
Yeah.
get that song up. So come on in, guys. There we are.
The Aaron and the Mandy team.
All right. What do we got
Harmonizing
tonight?
together.
Guys. Well, I hate to disappoint you.
Oh, you're going happy.
It's gonna be
After
a
I
happy
sent the
song.
email,
You'll
you're going all
love it.
happy on me.
I love it.
After that intro,
He's like, I'm a happy guy. Oh, wait, Alan Jackson, I requested. Tell me you brought it back.
I didn't bring that song back, but I brought another Alan Jackson.
Oh, fantastic. That
So
makes my
so
day.
so let me somebody explain to me what happens here. So Nancy Walker's on the show. I go all out complimenting her key lime pie,
And
and
I get the
Aaron gets one. And
oh,
I tell her, I know, and then
key
and
lime.
then I go
Sugar
all
and
out
spice
talking
makes
about
everything nice.
the soulful sounds of, and you asked for Alan Jackson, and that's what you get. Something's going on here that is incipient and wrong. I just want to say
Or is it?
it is. It's wrong. I just have to say. All right, guys, what you got for us?
So I said it's Alan Jackson. I like to be more specific than that. This is a Don Williams song. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Don Williams, but he was a fantastic songwriter and country music singer, and in the 70s, well, a little of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But he is really well known for a lot of the songs that he wrote that were done by other people. So anyway, this one is called "It Must Be Love." First I get cold, then hot, think I'm on fire, but I'm not. Oh, what a pain I've got. It must be love. There's nothing I can do. All that I want is you. Look what I'm going. It must be love. It must be love. Oh, it must be love. I fall like a sparrow, fly like a dove. It must be the dream I've been dreaming of. Oh, what a feeling, it must be love. Seeing you in my dreams, holding you close to me. Oh, what else can it be? It must be love. Living you in my dreams, something. Oh, I think of you all night. It can't be love. It must be love. Oh, it must be love. I fall like a sparrow, fly like a dove. It must be the dream I've been dreaming of. Oh, what a feeling, it must be love. It must be love, oh, it must be love. I fall like a sparrow, fly like a dove. It must be a dream I've been dreaming of. Oh, sorry about that.
It's great.
Oh, see, this happens every single time where Jim is muted.
Jim stays on mute and he forgets to come off mute.
Sorry about that. That was happy. That was a happy song. I
It
love
was, it was.
Good.
We also had fun with the lyrics too. We jumbled them all up and stuff.
it. Well, it doesn't matter. I didn't know the song, so I didn't know you jumbled them up. And it's good to see one of our elders in a different, this is a whole different view
Yeah.
actually. The people who come to Soul Cafe, they know this is Mandy. This is the real Mandy, right?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
This is the deal.
It only gets better from here.
So so how are you guys doing?
We're good.
Good. Yeah.
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 Yeah. You've adapted?
Yeah, I think we are. I feel like this week was the week that kind of,
Over the hump?
yeah, we're in a groove with the
Yeah.
kids in school.
Yep.
So, one of my
Just
questions
remember to
is,
end.
are people just going to get used to this and they're not going to want to go back? What do you think?
I don't know.
I think some people maybe.
I think it's worth questioning some of the, the norms, the things that we had created over time,
Yeah.
The established norms of everybody going to an office and being in the office, even if you're locked away in four walls isolated from everybody else during that time.
Yeah.
So
So like some things are being destroyed and it's okay.
I
Yeah.
think so.
And so we maybe the new normal is not all bad, right? We're going to figure some things out here.
Yep. I like the idea of being able to go wherever you want to go and do your work from there, and not have to be close by a center like Washington D.C.
But you'd still want to be here, of course.
Oh, yes.
Of course.
But
Well,
that is something people are going to start thinking, right? Like,
I
well,
think
wait a
that's
second,
right.
do I need to live in the most
Uh,
expensive place ever if I can go live somewhere else? But I mean, things are going to start to open back up. So it'll be interesting to see everyone's adapted and now it's going to all change again
I
soon.
tell you what, though, there's going to be a lot of internet infrastructure that's going to have to be built out. Have you been with friends of yours that are in some desolate place? Because wow,
Yeah.
it's different. So we take for granted these gig connections and the stuff that comes with this. So I guess it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yep.
All right, well, Mandy, we'll see you in a little while. And Aaron, thank you so much, brother. You
Yeah,
are the
thank
you
you.
are the voice of Soul Cafe. You truly are. So what are you going to sing next week? Just out of curiosity.
I don't know yet.
The one
I'll
that
put,
didn't
I'll
get
put my request in.
Chances are,
He hasn't even guaranteed me he'd sing next week, so we'll have to see.
Well, we had two prepared tonight, so he can always.
Okay, he can fall back on that one.
Yeah, and it was a sad, sad song.
Very
so-
Well,
sad.
that's the sad one. All right. See you guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Right.
So let's make sure people know that poll again, because they
Oh,
are
yeah.
going to want to ask questions, and it's been moving constantly. So the
Yeah,
whole
I can
time we've
see
been
that
talking,
too.
it's been moving a lot. Have you been
All
able to see
right.
it? You can't see it.
I can
So
see
now
it.
you can. So here, how desperate are you to be back in church? So if you didn't get before how to log in and you're first to Soul Cafe, there you go on top. That's how you do it. It's really easy. So I'm okay. Whenever's good. That's a quarter of people. I'm okay, but eager to get back. 22%. Needs to happen soon. 9%. That's about right from what I'm hearing. Be creative. I just want to see my peeps. See, I only got 6% on that one, Aaron, and that's upsetting because we're trying to be really creative about how people can see their peeps and not disrupt the flow of what we're doing. So that's what we're
Right.
actually working on. But 38% just say, yeah, just do the right thing. I'll be there. So
Yeah.
that's some
And then that's it.
permission giving, right?
Yeah.
That's nice. Appreciate that. 35% now. They went down a percent. Nobody said they're desperate. That's kind of sad. I'm desperate to see you guys. So
Well, I mean,
nobody's.
you keep saying like it's a new normal. People are adjusting. So I guess maybe
I
people
know,
have
but
now
I'm
gotten to
still.
that point where they're like, we've figured out community, and I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that's signaling, but it might just be that we've been in this for a long time and people are starting to figure out their.
It's working okay, but I got to tell you, I desperate. I'm not. I don't know about desperate, but I really, really want to see people.
Yeah.
So you guys keep responding to this poll, and then we'll get to the question and answer, and you'll already be on. That's the key, is that you're already logged in when we get to that point. So I thought it would be interesting to talk to one of our business owners. We have a number of small business owners in the church, and this is actually not a really small business. It used to be, but it's gotten a lot bigger. And Doug Miller's been really successful with Kor Nutritionals, and we've used, we've had him come on in a couple of other capacities. But I thought it would be interesting for him to talk about what it's been like to to have to close and then think about reopening.
Yeah.
Because I've talked to him about this a couple times, and I think it's interesting. So, Doug, how you doing?
Hey,
Let me
Doug.
unmute Doug. There you go. You're unmuted. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. What's going on?
I'm good. It's good to see you. So, we got to get you on and off because you got to go lead your small group.
Yeah, I gave them a warning. They're probably all watching right now. So
But this is a cool thing because
yeah,
from your home, you're getting ready to lead an IG right after this is over. You do a Wednesday night ignition group from your home,
yep.
and you got how's that going?
Which I got to say, the attendance has been way up ever since we've gone to Zoom. So I'm
Right?
kind of
Nobody's
like,
got
maybe
anything
they
else
just
to
don't
do.
want to be in our home or something. I don't know. We have a funny smell or something. I'm not sure what's going on.
Well,
But
plus you keep sending them free caffeine drinks to get on.
Yeah.
that could be. That could be.
That could
Bribery is
be that
working.
could be it. So I think you've been quite successful with Core Nutritionals, and it's a really impressive business. I've enjoyed coming out and working with your staff, and seeing what you guys do. But it's a multifaceted business, and it's been fascinating to hear you talk to me through this about what it was like to shut down, sort of, and be half open. And so, what's this whole thing been like for you?
Um, this is kind of going to sound kind of weird, but I've actually enjoyed it. And now it's weird because it's presented some very difficult and unique challenges that I enjoy trying to figure out, with
Yeah,
my team. And so I don't enjoy all of this, but I enjoy the challenge of adapting and doing new things and still being successful at the same time. Like that is the real challenge. Like, how do we adapt during this time? And so our business is kind of multifaceted. We have really three types of businesses. One is where we sell direct on our website to consumers, our brands that we own. And then we sell to our own retail stores to sell product, dietary supplements. And then we sell wholesale to other retailers out around the country to sell product. And the retail side of it obviously took a huge hit right off the bat. I mean, we were operating, luckily we were still allowed to operate. The Department of Homeland Security told us that the supplement stores, nutrition stores can be considered essential. So we were allowed to stay open, but we were operating, all the same expenses, but our revenue was about 35% of what it usually was.
yeah,
So
which is a huge cut, because I think most people don't understand about businesses like that. All the profit is in the top 20%. A lot of it's in the top 10%. It's not
yep,
huge margins.
yep,
So you
exactly.
lost all your margin.
Yeah. And so my goal through this whole process was I need to keep my, what I call like lifetime career employees that work for us fully employed, because when this thing ends, I'm going to need those same people. So I need to be faithful to them throughout the journey so that when it's time to open back up, I have the team that I've put into place to be successful again. And so what we did right off the bat is we reduced our hours, and unfortunately for a period of time, we had to furlough, kind of our, what we call kind of casual employees,
Mm-hmm.
associates.
Mm-hmm.
We brought their hourly down to kind of, help us get through this time. But I'm happy to say that we did keep everyone on. I think some of the government programs, the PPP program for us, helped make sure that everyone could stay on. And then as soon as we did get funded through the PPP, we did bring every single hourly employee, whether they're working or not, is still getting paid. So, it's been kind of like I said, it's been a huge challenge, especially on the retail side. Now, our retail stores are probably back up to 60, 65%. But like you said, in a retail setting, it's that top 20, 10% that is the most important. And so, we still have a ways to go there. But luckily, our direct to consumer business has really become our focus. And so what we have done is focused more on, we were going in that direction a little bit anyways, but this just expedited that process. So we really focused on continuing to build community and putting out good content in the context of health and fitness throughout this time period to help continue to grow that side of the business. And the response has been phenomenal. I would say without that uptick in our direct to consumer and that community we've been building kind of online, we'd be in a really bad spot right now.
Yeah, so you've just had to adapt
Yep.
essentially, which I think is the name of the game right now is just adapting. In our business too. It's just
Yep.
completely being able to just move and shift. So you said that was somewhere you wanted to go anyway. One of my contentions has been that this has just accelerated a lot of what was already happening.
Mhm.
So how much of this do you think will sort of stick? It becomes the new norm, and the new norm is not all bad. You just learn some stuff here and it sticks.
Yeah. So I'm hoping it's a little bit of both. And I think it will be a little bit of both. I think some people will fundamentally change their consuming habits and
Hmm.
just stay online. But we know for a fact, just talking to our loyal customers, people say retail's been dying anyways. Well, I would make the claim that that is not true. If you're providing a unique service and a reason why people come in, which is the experience you get in a store, even if you're just buying retail goods like vitamins or whatnot, if you're providing an actual experience, retail is not dead. So we've been hearing from our customers, they've been super excited to kind of actually get out and come into our store. So I am hoping that that core group, no pun intended, of people that are really enjoy the retail experience will stay with us. And then I'm just hoping that we can grab more people from the internet side of things as we continue to expand that side of our business. But unfortunately, I really think that the consumer habits are going to change some, and
Hmm.
the days of running to all these different stores to pick up stuff are just over. People are just going to sit at home and click buttons and you know purchase that way. But if you
Yeah.
adapt and still provide a good service, I think you definitely can carve out your niche.
Yeah, so you're going to survive this and you're going to thrive afterwards. I'm positive. So I've been presenting this framework for a group of people, leaders that lead. It's learn and then enlighten or sort of put light on the situation and adapt and then demonstrate. And once we demonstrate, we can show what change is possible. So
Mhm.
if you've learned one thing from this, if and it could be personal or it could be business, whichever you choose, but if this crisis has allowed you to learn something, what have you learned?
I would say I have been more active and aggressive in my business decisions during this time than any other time. So, like, it is the thought of stagnation and staying steady and not making progress for months on end during this quarantine
Hmm.
just did not sit right because I could see other businesses already falling into that mold, and I didn't want anything to do with it. So we've actually started to branch out even into other businesses and other things that we're doing, and it's kind of accelerated everything. So for me, it is, if there's something that I want to get done in the sense of business, now is the time. It's not like, I think a lot of times I was almost too conservative and waiting for the perfect moment. There is no perfect moment. It's always going to be difficult. So, like, we've always wanted to open our own gym. So during this time period, guess what? Everyone else is selling their gym equipment. We can buy it for pennies on the dollar and start creating our own gym. So during this time, we've been building out a gym the entire time when everyone else is like closing up.
No
And
kidding. Where is it?
it's in our warehouse. We moved around and reorganized and carved off a couple thousand square feet in our warehouse and just started building out. It's going to be for employees only to start, but it's something we've always wanted to do. And, so I'm using this opportunity to kind of keep pushing forward with our aspirations. And so it's really kind of, not that I was ever not a go-getter, but, it kind of motivated me even more to kind of keep pushing forward.
So I think increased intentionality is the great opportunity of this moment. So Aaron, you've talked about this in your own business, doing some of your podcasting. So I think if you were a little lackadaisical, we can get stuck in a rut, and
Mhm.
this either puts you further in or it pulls you out.
Yep.
And so I think that's awesome. That it's just a good word about that. So you're hoping for things to open back up. What's that going to look like? How do you make decisions about what to do and what is right and versus just what is profitable in this moment?
it's difficult. I mean, I know I have my own personal beliefs, and at the end of the day, I really think things need to start opening up sooner rather than later, because at the end of the day, a lot of these small businesses, families are just going to be gone. I mean, like, they're going to be gone for good. I mean, I think a lot of these people will never open up back again. And then what happens, right? Like, this is could go on for generations. And at the end of the day, a lot of their businesses, it's the person's choice whether or not to go there or not, whether they feel comfortable. And, obviously everyone needs to take the proper and appropriate steps to stay as healthy as possible. But I really think we need to get moving forward as soon as we can. I mean, like, that's my personal take on this, because it obviously hits near and dear to me personally. But I've been very lucky that it hasn't affected us as bad as I see it affecting even friends of ours that are business owners that are really debating whether or not to open up ever again. So
Yeah,
I think it's going to happen soon, or I think people are just going to kind of get fed up with it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's the business owner perspective. So if I talk to people who own a small business, they're in a very different place than people are in a different position. I think we have to see that everybody has their own sense of what risk is higher, right? And everybody's measuring a set of risks. And if you're a business owner, the risk of losing your business feels, or having it decline significantly, it feels pretty significant.
Yep.
And I will say, from a pastor of a church, it feels pretty significant. What you're constantly thinking about, what can be lost here. It's a different calculus, isn't it? Yeah,
it sure is.
So what would you, you're really active at Columbia and you're a really strong leader. So what would you say, what can we learn from this moment? Not just the business thing, but what can the church take away? I think a lot's changing on that front too.
I mean, this is super cliched, right? But everything happens for a reason. And I'm more convinced than ever that this is the part of a grander plan to come out on the other side of this with a complete reset, and for things to, really change. I think the entire country, every aspect of it, not the country, the world, just the way, I mean, it's made everyone pause, slow down, maybe say a couple extra prayers, maybe hug their kids a little bit more, spend a little more time with them. So for me, I mean, it is just only, strengthened my faith that, like, every night we pray, I pray with my sons that, we know you've sent the coronavirus here for a reason. We pray that you take it away soon, but we understand there's a grander plan. And I think this has been, from a family perspective, a great time for everyone to kind of readjust the priorities a little bit. So,
yeah.
For me personally, it has definitely strengthened my faith. So I'm hoping that it will bring more people to church. Like I said, even our home IG has more people now than it did before this thing happened, right? So maybe more people will come to Christ through this thing than if it never occurred.
Yeah, well, I did not pay you to answer that way, but you know how much I love that answer, because that's what I'm preaching too, is this is a reset. It's an opportunity, and I think we have to take it as such. You can either use it as that or not. But yeah, I'm totally with you. So I got to get you you've got 30 seconds to get to your ignition group.
No way from.
Nah, we'll let you. So thanks for being with us, man.
All right, thank you so much, guys.
I love you, love your business, and thanks so much for being with us. Take care, man.
Sure, anytime.
All right, so let's take one. That poll has been just constantly moving. I mean, we got a lot of responses to this, which doesn't surprise me, because we're going to look at the survey here in a few moments. And Aaron, we got like almost 475 or something responses to the survey about worship, which just tells you how passionate people are about this. So this is where we are now. You see how to respond. Be sure because in a moment you're going to want to ask people. And while you're getting your final responses in there, let me start to pull in our elders, because we want to have a little conversation with them about how they're doing what they do in these days. So let's see. Erin is Mandy now, so I got to get her in. So what do you think about that poll, Erin?
I think it's, I was trying to think of how I would answer it, because I think, I have kids and stuff. So, it's like, for me, there's all these like components. Like, well, does it mean our kids go back? Things like that. So I think it's interesting to see how everyone's answering it.
That's what makes it still moving. That's what makes this tough, is that there is a lot to this decision. So Brent, you're sideways. Let's get you upright somehow there, man. turn your phone upright and then turn it back around and you'll be upright. And so let me unmute you guys. So these are
Am I good now?
elders. Yeah, I got you. I got
Okay.
everybody in there now. So let me introduce these elders of our congregation. They're not all here because all of our elders would be too overwhelming to the screen. But you guys heard from Jim Fry, I think last week before.
Last week.
Last week.
Last
Yeah.
week. Yeah. So he's an elder and he's watching tonight. And he's our elder who has actually survived COVID. So you see Brent Walker. Brent is our chair of the Board of Elders. Hey, Brent.
Hello, everybody.
Nice for you to sport the Falls Church shirt and,
Yes, sir.
rock the city spirit, even though you are in Merrifield, I think.
Yeah.
It's still
He's a
false.
He's a
church.
false
You're still a Falls
Yeah.
Church at heart.
We're
Okay.
proud,
And then Bruce Barr. Bruce, how you doing? Nice to see you.
Well,
Bruce
thanks.
he's our Saturday night guy. So he came to Columbia through our Saturday night worship service, and still you're part of the Saturday night IG, correct?
That's
every
right.
Saturday night you meet. And Mandy Torgerson, we saw you once. Now we see you again back as an elder. Good to see you. And John Guidey, my neighbor. John, we're right down the street from each other and we don't even know it. You're at your house, right?
I am.
Yeah. So you're like half a block from me. We could have done this together, but anyway.
But then what would that have said?
we'd be closer than 6 feet. That would be a problem, wouldn't it? And then David Stoner. David, how you doing? Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Good. And Robin his song. So this is a group of our elders, and I thought it would be intriguing to speak with them about the poll that you started to be introduced to on Sunday when I preached, and that many of you took, and also to sort of hear from them about how they're making decisions these days, because I think it's a pretty tough time. So Brent, talk a little bit about the process we're walking through, and Aaron, please jump in and ask these people questions because they're on with me all the time. So get them rolling on something different than I would ask. So what's this been like for us?
Well, it's been strange. We've been working hard. There are 12 of us. There's a certain theological symmetry there, but we're meeting more frequently than we used to. We used to meet monthly for the first year of our existence, but since April we have been meeting weekly, making decisions, and some of us are meeting even more frequently. Have two subcommittees going, one dealing with worship issues and opening issues and tithes and offerings. Doug Jaeger is leading that group, and then there's a CDC issues group that Bruce Barr is heading up. So we're working hard. There are 12 of us, and we're very diverse, but we have throughout our existence made decisions unanimously. Every vote that we've had has been unanimous, and the vote that we took.
It didn't have to be, by the way, but it has been.
I know, yeah. It didn't have to be, but it is, and setting the June 21 target date was a unanimous decision. We think that it is the right thing to do, to pick up on one of your phrases in the current
sermon. The sermon direction.
Yeah. But we really believe that June 21 is a good date. It's reasonably near. It is a date that gives us some flexibility to make some really difficult decisions that we're going to have to continue to make to open at that time. It is a target. It is a date before which we will not open, but depending upon circumstances, if infections and deaths don't settle but spike, we may have to go beyond that. But we are going to continue to have the safety of all Colombians in mind first and foremost, and that's going to dictate how we go forward. But like you said, Jim Fry is one of us, and we have that firsthand glimpse of what it's like to be a COVID-19 recoverer and sufferer. So it's something that we take seriously. We think we were doing the right thing, and we appreciate the poll that seems to indicate that folks have some trust in us, and we're going to continue to try to earn that trust and keep it inviolate.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize how much is involved with what you're doing right now. And at the beginning of this, I sort of forced this on your plate, to be honest, and said, you need to look at the risk. On the CDC side, there's a huge revenue loss for the congregation. Thankfully, the congregation has been really faithful on the giving side so far, but we don't know what the future holds. So you're dealing with that. How do we adapt to a new reality? And then you're also dealing with the whole reopening thing, which is really more complex than people think, too. So all the push points like hallways and bathrooms and greeting stations and who can come and how do you decide, how do you know who's coming, and how do you handle children and preschoolers who don't social distance real well, especially preschoolers. But all this is just there. There are a number of issues I defined for you guys that were, I think, things people don't think about. They think about just sitting in a sanctuary 6 feet apart. It turns out there's a whole lot more to it than that, including jeopardizing the quality of the virtual thing that I think we're doing pretty well overall. So, Robin, how about you dealing with this? I'm going to go to each of you. So, just so you're all ready, what's been unique about this? Tell people how it is to engage this.
Yeah. So you shared with us those four quadrants and where you can amend or attune or alter or adapt. And I guess I've always thought adapting was easier than it actually is. Um, I think, I always think, oh, I can adapt to anything. But adapting under the circumstances that we're in it takes a lot of work because the information is changing every day.
You
And
have really low visibility, as I've been saying. So
yeah,
that makes it
and so
complicated.
and very complicated information every day, between what people want and what health care workers are telling us, what our government leaders are telling us. It changes the panorama a lot. And so I think I do appreciate what Brent said, that for the board of elders to work together, I think has been key. Just because not no one of us has to have the single answer, but working together, I think we're trying to make decisions in a timely manner and as strategically as possible.
Yeah, and let me tell you this. Had we not made this change when we made it to an elder approach, I don't know where I'd be right now. So there's some changes. I got a list of things that happened before this that were providential, but if I didn't have you guys, I really don't know. It would be so much harder. So I'm so grateful for the teamwork of this group. So Bruce, how about you? For give some reaction to what this is like, and I think people need a window into how hard this is. They think this isn't these are easy calls, but they're not.
Well, one thing that I've certainly this has brought to my attention is how, yes, we are a body, but like a body, we all have different tolerances, and that goes with, I think, whether it's opening the church itself or even the CDC. There are people who, whether it's because they have are in a high risk group, they've got a different tolerance for their willingness to come back than others, but also emotionally, people have different tolerances for things. So when we're looking at all of these things, that's something we're also having to keep in mind, is that as a body, we want to be able to say we are, as a body, are together in whatever we're doing. So taking that into account, and also taking into account, of course, as Brent said, the safety factor, because we definitely want to make sure that we're doing everything that's reasonable to maintain everyone's health and safety, whether it's in the CDC or with the church. And so that just brings in a lot of considerations. One thing I'll just mention is that sometimes we might see those as almost physically separate, because church occurs mostly Sundays and Saturdays, whereas CDC is a weekday event. However, and they're physically in different parts of the building to some extent, but if there is a contamination that happens in the building, it, regardless of where it may have started or occurred, it has an effect or can have an effect on the other side, and also perception-wise. So we really have to look at everything in totality to see how it might affect how we move forward, when we move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a good word about trying to be together while we have different opinions about how this should work. I think that I've examined, I can tell you, I get constant feedback. So there's a broad range of opinion about what we should do here. And yet to remain unified and to walk together and to be patient if you're someone who's ahead, and to be a little ahead and courageous if you're someone who's behind, to somehow wind up in the middle is going to be a real challenge here.
Right.
Mandy, how about you?
Go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry, Aaron.
I was just going to say to add to that, because just being someone who's not on the elder board, and I promised everyone, none of us rehearsed this, so Jim hasn't heard any of my questions either. So,
No.
but being a member, so one thing that constantly I think strikes people is this idea that people don't understand how hard the process is, or don't understand. Like, I think every individual understands how much is going into each of these decisions. Sometimes it's a matter of just maybe not knowing the factors that someone else has to consider that you maybe as a person or as a business owner might not need to. So things like when you're talking about the CDC versus the church and liabilities, I'd love to hear, and I think other people would love to hear, is a little bit about like, what do we need to know that's different? You know, is it liability in like a true litigious sense, or is it more like a body making one big decision? Because I don't think any individual doesn't think that this is like an incredibly hard decision to make, and a complicated decision to make. But maybe if we could talk a little bit about, as you guys go through, like some of the real like brass tacks of things that you're wrestling with, so people can understand truly like the technicality of the decisions you guys are making.
You want to
I
take
would
that one
imagine.
on, David?
No.
Again, not rehearsed.
I'm
Don't have
pretty
to
sure.
answer it, but I'm
I'm
just
pretty
stating
sure
a question.
David can
You
take
know?
that one on.
Well, I mean, I'm happy to let anybody chime in. I mean, it's certainly a multifaceted problem, and in our position, we do have that view, and in large part thanks to Jim's sharing his constant struggles with these things. We've got so many aspects to the church, whether it be the CDC or what happens on Sunday, what happens other days of the week. Whether it just so happens to be that, we are in the beginning of a building project and we have decisions to make about whether and at what pace to move forward on that. We've had a lot of things. There've been some real pluses to the shutdown, in that we've been able to get a head start on some of the infrastructure that would lay the groundwork for what we want to do next, or even make things better as we are once they're complete. But I'm just amazed at the range of issues that do need to be confronted. I think Jim and Bruce are right. We have to confront them with humility, and I think that's one of the reasons that, as elders, we've been able to have these unanimous votes. We don't have anyone trying to force any particular view on anyone else. We've all been approaching things with open minds and hearts, and I think that's what the church needs to do. We need to be the church, and to do that, that means we each show a humility and a love toward everyone around us, rather than asserting our own way, however strongly we might feel. And some of us, like me, I really throw up my hands. I don't know the answers to a lot of these things, and I think among the elders, that's common. It's not so common in the world around us. People seem to be, at least the ones we hear, speak with such certainty, such certitude about even the slightest little thing, and you wonder, how could they possibly know? And you realize they don't know. And perhaps the louder they sound, the more they really don't know, and they're just trying to cover their ignorance with their certitude.
Well, sometimes I think also people, I mean, everyone's just trying to sort it out, right? So I think also holding those two things in tension too is like at some point you
Right.
got. So I agree with you. Some people might just be shouting because they want to shout, but some people might just be like, "Well, but that's the risk assessment I've made for myself, and so therefore it is declaratively what I think." But I think you bring up an interesting point about the construction. Being a person who's living amongst the construction, I mean, I've definitely thought of like, well, what the heck? I guess if we're already closed down, is there a decision maybe just to like hang it out until we finish the construction project? Has that been on your all's mind? I mean, I don't know that that would be
We've
a
talked about
horrifying
it.
direction, right? Like some people might agree with that.
We've talked about it, Mandy. Maybe you want to address this because there are two sides of the coin, and or maybe John. John's the our finance guy. Either one of you. Uh, this is a complicated decision at this moment because your visibility is so low. So on there's a one hand and another. So maybe each of you present one of the hands. I don't know which. Mandy, you're probably the optimist. So you present the we just press forward. We finish this. We move into a new building. That's the one side.
I mean, this is the first blessing in all of this was the fact that CDC did have to be closed, so we didn't have to displace all these children to do the site work that's happening right now that needed to happen anyway, regardless of how quickly or slowly we are able to move ahead with the building. So that was a definitely a blessing in disguise, and I don't know, there is something to be said for um, the symbolism of coming back to this new building, sort of
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
fresh start.
Yeah, so we've actually talked about we have had the conversation that we think the time horizon's too long. What if we just built this out and our first Sunday back was in the new facility and we could be sort of virtual until then? The problem is the time horizon's a little long for that. We're not sure people can do that quite that long. If it were a year, maybe we could pull it off. But there's also another side to the coin, which I think our people don't think about. So we're in a different financial reality, and John's the perfect guy to present that because this is his game.
Yeah.
So we've raised what 12 million or something like that. We spent some of it, but we've raised a lot of money, but we still have to borrow a lot of money. What's that look like?
Right. Yeah. There's two pieces to the puzzle. One is ties year to date have been great, um, but we don't know what the future holds. The summer is looking warmer and better, and everybody's excited, but everyone's talking about a second wave in the fall. And unfortunately for us, a lot of money comes in that October, November, December timeframe, and so you have thinking about the finances now. But then when you get to 2021 and you have this new building, that comes with a cost that's hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain that per year. And if ties are already down and now you're adding a huge cost, is that is that the best decision? And to your point, Jim, it could work out perfectly. We find a vaccine or we have a solution and we come back, we have this new building and people are excited. But on the flip side, it could be the numbers aren't as good, and now we have this additional debt, and how do we dig ourselves out of this? And so I've asked Jim to tell us what he's preaching about a year from now. Let me know.
I knew before this before this whole thing.
But this just these two sides are a really
Yeah.
good representation
It's
of.
part of that like CDC versus church too for people to better
It's
understand
all of
the
it.
fiscal model. Yeah, because I mean, you do have tithes and offerings, but the CDC obviously is a revenue generator for the church, and so I'm sure that people understanding that those two, you can shut down the church maybe for worship to rebuild the building, but does that affect how you open the CDC and revenue? And is that because you'd be in the same position servicing the debt regardless of whether we kept
Right.
through or not? So is that part of what you guys are weighing?
Yes. Well, let me say the CDC is not a profit center. It's not.
But it's
It's kind
generating
of, but at least it generates what
costs.
we spend, including our staff and building expenses, et cetera.
Right.
We could easily lose a lot of money holding the CDC up for the next little while. I mean, in the whole scheme of things, we could break even on the bottom line, but you've got a lot of hidden expenses in that. So, I just think I would have all of you speak to this. The weight of leadership is heavy in a moment like this. You don't want to lead people to a place where you're doing something that's irresponsible, and at the same time you want to be courageous and bold. And these people are courageous and bold. I will say, be in a room with them, they almost always come out with the perspective of God's going to take care of us. We will prevail. We have faith. Um, but 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 we feel responsible, and it maybe I'm not. I'm assuming they think it's as heavy as I do. It feels pretty heavy to me a lot of days. So I'd
We're
be
not
interested in
sleeping
sort of
much.
you guys respond to what Aaron just asked. That's how I feel.
It's it's um it's a big responsibility. There are just a mind-blowing amount of details to work through and think about. And I don't envy Laura Gravitt right now and her position, trying to figure out CDC stuff. Um, it's definitely losing sleep.
Yeah.
But
Well, hey, each of you guys are individuals who are having to make these own decisions in your own homes. To have to bring that to a decision board where you're having to make that for a larger body, I think everyone understands how hard that has got to be. And I don't think anyone faults you all for all the things that you're going through. I think it's more how we feel, even just asking the governor what's the thought process behind it. I don't know, Jim, if you're receiving some questions over the text or anything or the poll, but I mean,
I
I
haven't gone to
honestly,
that yet.
yeah,
I was going to throw up the polls real quick
yeah,
because I think a lot of people are interested in what the total. Yeah, we can run through these very quickly. And by the way, we may stay on a little later tonight than we normally do. And if those of you who normally do Soul Cafe, if 8 o'clock's your hour, that's fine. But I think you may not get the elders too often. So first of all, what is your age? This was fascinating to me, Aaron. But we skewed younger here. 40 to 49 was the biggest bracket by far. 30 to 39 and 50 to 59 about
I'm
equal. And then
considered young.
yeah, it's well, I mean, if you think about a congregation, it is
Yeah,
people who would respond to a poll. We didn't get many of our students to respond,
sure.
and young adult and very young adults, but we got a lot of other people. So some people asked me, what was the age? So I threw that one in. Um, how often have you been online in worship? I showed this Sunday, so I'll do it quickly. 85 to 90% have been in worship regularly, which is pretty amazing. And something to be considered because we don't want to, we've talked about this a lot as elders. We don't want to compromise what we're doing well in order to just have a few people in the room and have everybody on stage have to wear a mask, for example.
Mhm.
So it gets really complex in this sense. So how often have you been online in IG? Over 50% have been in ignition groups regularly. Interestingly, as a result of the sermon on Sunday, I got 5 people who said, I want to be in an IG. That was kind of cool. Would you prefer online or in person? More people said online right now. So they're apparently more desperate to be in a worship setting, in a cathedral worship setting, than they are to be in a small group at the moment, different than the one they're experiencing otherwise. When we returned, some said immediately, some said first opportunity with precautions, but a lot said after several weeks or after quite a while. And of course, we can think about the situations they may have going on in that sense. Would you come if required to wear a face mask? And, it surprised me. I don't know about you elders, but Brett Flanders said he thought this would be a higher percentage. Really, 30% of people won't think about wearing a mask if that's what it takes to be a part of it and protect others. That was fascinating to me. Our staff is mandated to wear a mask when they come into the building because we got to keep everyone safe. Anyway, a lot said they would. Some said not sure. What capacity would make you feel comfortable? Half full is the majority. The next is quarter full. Some three-quarter full and a few full. So that's a big complication when we're egalitarian in our ethos and everybody can come. What happens when you tell people, nope, this is your Sunday, nope, this is yours, and you have to have a ticket? Which gets to this one. Would you feel okay reserving a seat? A lot said yes. Some people said doesn't matter, but it's a pretty significant percentage who said I wouldn't come if I had to get a ticket. I don't know what choice we have right now except to know who's coming to be able to control the capacity of the room. Would you come if these are people who have children under 18? Would you come if no programs for your kids? A lot said yes, but a whole lot said no. And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I think, John, you might be able to speak to, and Mandy, you too, how tough that would be,
Yeah.
how different that would be.
Right.
What precautions do you expect? This was not in on Sunday. Some said they'd wear a face mask. A lot said they wouldn't shake hands. That's not a very tough one, is it? Although I'll find it tough not to touch people. A lot of people said they'd have no contact at all with people. That's a different church experience, isn't it? I mean, you're there, but are you really there? You have to. You're there, but like walking in your neighborhood, you're watching for people. People are going to bring sanitizer. They'll avoid crowded halls. I don't know how you do that in our hallways. Just help me understand how we navigate our hallways and bathrooms if we do this. It's one of the big complicators here. What will you watch for as signals to when we should open? Some people said business open, restaurants open, schools open. Cases very small. That's my paraphrase, but essentially a low number of cases. It could be a long time before we're at a very low number of cases. Testing widely available. That's turning out to be pretty complicated. I don't know. Do you get tested at the door? I don't know, but anyway, effective vaccine. So look, 25% of people, or a little more, 27% of people, I think it is, said until there's an effective vaccine,
Which is,
they're going to have a hard time coming back.
wow,
That's
they don't even have one for the flu yet.
that's right. That's a ways off, even if people are saying they're good candidates right now.
Yeah.
And all distancing lifted recommendations over 40%. That's going to be a while. So phase one is just phase one. That's just restaurants at 50% capacity in outside spaces. And only churches have the right to gather inside their space at 50%.
At 50%. What
And
is our
that's
50%
it's
capacity?
First Amendment. It'd
Do
be
we
about 300 people.
And do we normally hit that across all of our services, or is it one service? I
It-
was actually curious about the age question because it didn't necessarily ask about which service you normally attend. So I
Yeah,
was
no, it varies by service because we do a number of services. So,
sure.
but we'd go over in a few services and under in some. But I don't even know how you do that. So listen, it's 50% of your room, but it's family units only sitting together 6 feet apart in all directions. You can't get 50% of the room at that. So we're probably talking about 50, 60 people coming to be live spectators of the virtual thing. Our better idea is to keep doing virtual and maybe do some special outdoor things where people can get together and be. That's why we're trying to be creative.
Mhm.
But anyway, this is really, really hard. So I'll get back to this in a moment. Actually, this is something I threw up for our elders, and I think it's been a watchword for me. The Stockdale paradox, Admiral Stockdale, is to retain the faith that you will prevail in the end, regardless of the difficulties. And I believe we will. Columbia will prevail in the end. And I think God has his hand on our shoulder, and I think God's got great things for us. But at the same time, confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they may be. And I've thrown this up for the elders almost every meeting
Mhm.
because that's what we're asking our leaders to do, is to confront the most brutal facts responsibly and deal with them. And at the same time, be hopeful and courageous. And these folks are. These are hopeful people. I think most people think I've had some people say, well, the elders and you are coward. I'm like, come on. We want to be back as
Don't
bad
say
as you do.
most. Don't say most.
Uh,
You might be hearing from some loud people, but
No, I
it's
don't mean
kind of
most. I mean
refreshing for
a
people to feel
few.
like you guys think.
I'm sorry, a few people have.
Yeah, a few
But
people.
you guys, that's not true. We
A
want to be
lot
back.
of people think that this is a hard decision.
We want to be back as bad as you
It's
do.
hard. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just when you start to consider all the factors and who you're protecting.
Yeah.
And also you're protecting your reputation in the community. Think about the first Sunday our parking lots are full and our neighbors, what they
Have you
feel.
heard from other churches in the neighborhood? I was curious, actually, that was going to be another one of my questions, given that there's a whole community. Is the community of churches in the Northern Virginia area talking as well, just to see we're all going to go in this together and do the same thing? Or is there that kind of talk amongst the groups?
So you keep asking questions that are for me, even though
Oh,
I
sorry.
want you to ask questions to the elders. So
Well, I mean,
the answer
I
is
don't know if
no.
there's other elder boards that get
The
together.
answer has been no. However, I gathered a group of large churches from the area together. I know their pastors, and I called them and said, let's work together on this. So there are now 5 large churches in the area. It's not all the large churches in the area, to be sure, but that are the pastors. We're working together. Our elders are we're in communication, so we can communicate with our elders about a common sort of strategy for steps, because I do think it would help if churches were together on this. And
Yeah.
if we could make a common statement on behalf of the evangelical community anyway, that we do care about our community and we're thinking carefully about this.
Yeah.
I don't know. You guys weigh in on all this stuff.
Well, I think it's the idea of or the fact that you've gathered these, have been speaking with these other churches in the area. is definitely an important thing, because as we go through this, I think it's going to be a process, and we want to have other people we can turn to and learn from them, and vice versa. So far, from what my observation of how this whole thing has gone is, whether it's local government, national government, things that have been the right thing to do at one point, as we move through this, those things may change. But either way, you do what you think is best at that time, based on the information that you have at the time. As we go through this and we learn that the virus acts differently, then we change and amend how we might respond. And so we have to be flexible. And so we won't see every instance of every difficulty that will come up, but by talking to others, getting an idea of what they're experiencing, we can roll that into our planning and how we approach things.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and through all of this, it's making purposeful decisions, being quick to listen and slower to act, so that we can love our neighbors and we can do the right thing for everyone.
So let me ask you guys a question. So I just threw up the what would people like to ask piece, so they can start to, you can get on that same poll piece, and we're gonna is it okay, Aaron, if we stay on and let people ask the
Sure.
questions to the elders?
Sure.
Even Aaron, if you have to go eat dinner or whatever, it's fine. But
I already ate. Thank you. I'm
I
good.
think this is a rare opportunity for these folks, and we'll get another group of elders on next time. But for the person who says to us, and let me play devil's advocate, which is a funny thing for a pastor to do, but let me do that for a moment. And the few people, that it's not most, it's a few that I would hear from, who would say, look, the church needs to be courageous right now and step back in, and just we need to show people that we're not afraid, and we're going to worship. And I know none of you are afraid. I've been in room with you, and I know all of you are courageous, and I know you're people of great faith. But what would you say to people? Because we've talked about this. How do we respond to that?
I think sometimes I've been thinking a lot about that, because I question too, am I demonstrating faith by waiting, or am I demonstrating faith by running forward? And just running back to the way it was may not necessarily be the most courageous step. I think having the faith to trust in the Lord, to show the right way and to help us make the right decisions, that does take more courage sometimes to wait. I think it takes more courage and strength, and just to be able to wait on the Lord. So I don't know that rushing back is necessarily the biggest step forward, right? It may not be, especially if we don't really look at all the different things that have to be worked out so that we can come back safely, and come back well, and come back stronger.
Friends on mute.
He's on mute.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brent. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just what I would say to them is come talk to Jim Fry and see what he's been through for the past 2 months, and the risk of that happening over and over and over again by moving too quickly is just something that we can't tolerate. I don't think in God's plan he wants us to risk the lives of our fellow Christians.
We need to have
Go ahead.
We need to have the faith that God can work in any situation, including the situation in which we find ourselves. The church, we know this, but the point is being made to us every day now. The church is not the building.
Right.
The church is the body of Christ. The body of Christ is not a brick and mortar thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's great that we have it when we can assemble there, but we don't need it. And so God can work in these circumstances when we are physically apart. We can still be bound together, and we can still grow.
Yeah, just because we have the right doesn't mean it's necessarily um, best to do. And as Brent said, we got to make sure we're taking care of everybody, and we don't want to make the wrong headline. Jim, what you said, right now, churches that are in the news are in the news because there's been an outbreak, whether it was a priest dying in Houston and 5 more are sick, or a church in Arkansas where a kid's birthday party got a bunch of people infected, or a church in California or Oregon where folks got sick from choir practice. Those aren't the type of headlines that we probably want to make to our local community, to show them that, hey, we love you and we want you to come join our church, as we're building a new building.
So this is a great opportunity for you guys to hear some of what I hear all the time. So we've had a lot of various comments come in, but here are a few that have come in. Actually, there are about 10, but here are 2 of them. Data does not support staying shut down to this extent. We know the risk groups. Okay, there's one. Here's another one. Why not let people make their own decision about this? So this is the everyday pushback from, it's not a ton, it's not certainly the majority, but I hear it a lot. So we think about this too, and we talk about this. So how would you, as elders, I know how I respond to this, but how do you respond to those 2 statements? Data doesn't support it. We know the risk group. They can stay away. Or we can, I guess, keep them away, because some of the people in the risk group, frankly, it's going to be hard to keep them away. There's some of the ones that want to come back. It's kind of funny. And then why not let people make their own decision about this? Why don't you just open, and then people can make up their own mind? That's pretty common response.
Well, I will, regarding the question about data doesn't support it, I would ask, maybe rhetorically, when, at what point did that data change so that it was okay to return? Was it last week? Was it 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago? The week after Jim Fry got COVID-19 before? So the question is, what data are we looking at, and when are we comfortable, or was that person, for instance, comfortable with going back? As I said, things change from one point, from when this began to where we are now and to where we're going to go. So it's always, I think, going to be something of a judgment call as to what is right. And there's always going to be risk. There's always going to be risk. It's a question of whether we have taken into account all the possibilities, all the possible risks, and decided that now's the prudent time to do it. And even then, some people will decide that it's not quite right for them, as the poll indicated. Some people, whenever we set that first date, however many people are allowed to come in at that point, some people will still personally say they're not quite ready for it. So there is personal choice in that, even then. So it varies.
And maybe to the question of let everyone make their own decision, I think if I can make my own decision and it only affects me, then I can ask for that in a way. But if my decision can impact somebody else, and may not, and even though I don't know how I'm impacting somebody, right? I feel like this is a time to consider each other more than just ourselves as individuals. It really is a call to be thinking about, a lot of people have been hurt economically, financially, health-wise, throughout of this, and there is an opportunity for us to consider each other and worry more about what we're doing for each other than just what maybe my own personal desire is.
When we were talking about like the construction and stuff, and again, I mean, like I really don't envy any of your positions. I'm sure this is really tough. And Brent, you said there was a couple subcommittees, so I'm sure you're probably breaking some of this out also into like children's programs, adults, worship, all this type of thing. But given that virtual worship is going so well on IGs, and given that the state will open up, and so maybe families will start combining and hosting church in their families, and that might be even what the church asks people to do. One of the crazy things about this, or providential, is that we are starting on a building revamp. Like, I'm sure that's like stuff that you're wrestling to the ground every day of like, well, wait a minute, we are spending all this money on this building and we're building this new sanctuary, but at the same time, people may get very used to developing church in their homes, and then will they come to that building when it's open? And I mean, is this all that what you guys are just having to kind of work through on a daily basis? Because I mean, that makes my brain hurt. So I'm sorry that you all are having to be entrusted with that, but I'm sure that those are the things that everyone has to consider. And then of course us as members of the church have to think of like, yeah, how do we then change that behavior when that becomes the accepted norm? So is that some of the, maybe that's a subcommittee question too, Brent, because you mentioned there was a couple subcommittees. Are you all breaking into those sort of chats to sort of talk about all the different sides of it?
Yeah, we are, but I think all of us together believe that whenever this ends, and whatever it looks like when we're on the other side, we've got to have a church building. We may continue to do virtual worship, and I think that's good because it extends beyond the neighborhood and the city of Falls Church. But we got to have a church, a building, and
I can't wait to see it.
yeah, and we so it's going to be a both and. But you're right. It's to get a little bit theological about it. One of the main conundrums we've got to deal with as Christians and as members of Columbia is what do we do, and what do we let God do? There's a division there. We've got to make practical decisions. We've got to, do the best we can with what we understand the facts are, and to go forward. But at some point, we've got to, in faith, let God do what God is supposed to do. And so there's a real tug there. But we have to approach those two questions together. What do we do? Do the best we can, and then leave the rest to God.
What are you thinking, David? I haven't heard from you in a minute, and then I'll throw in something.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we know that we're going to be entering a new normal, a new reality. We don't know what its contours are going to be. We might have some strong ideas, but we don't know. And is it going to be a situation where people will not want to gather in large groups? Even if that's the case, though, will we need a larger space to accommodate social distancing, or an even smaller group, or the same size group? Should we be concerned about well, image is only image. We don't want to be unduly concerned with image. As you noted, Jim, how we present ourselves to the community around us does matter. Is it important that our physical facility show that we are a vibrant community of faith, not one that's seated back in the 1950s? Is that important? So there's a whole range of considerations, and we recognize we're going to have decisions to make. Some in the not too distant future, and others further down the road.
So I'll give people a window into an elder board meeting. So in the first, one of my I've been talking a lot about leading beyond the blizzard. I think this crisis is being way underestimated by everything from the stock market to the culture right now. I think it's going to be long. I think it's going to be deep, financially and otherwise. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't affect. I'd go back next Sunday. It doesn't scare me. And by the way, people need to know, in our worship teams that are gathering, we've already had 2 COVID threats just in the worship team, and that's in a small little group, a tiny little group. And if you multiply that by the number of people in the room, it is provable that the church has been a big part of this spread, or at least places of faith.
Well, and we have another family, a whole family that has it, who remembers. So.
I know a whole family that has it. One of them is on our team, and then another we're waiting for a test result. we're dealing with this every week with a small team of people in the sanctuary producing worship spread apart. And so I think this is way more complicated than people think. But at the first meeting, I just said to them, look, I have led Columbia to the precipice of taking a huge loan after giving a huge amount of money and buying a building. And I need to make sure that we're doing the right thing and being responsible. So the pushback came from the elder board, who said to me, wait a second, we believe God is in this, and we believe God will take care of it, of us. And so I was the one, imagine this, Aaron, because I've been the one pushing this for 10 years. I was the one saying, maybe we need to pause. And they said, no. So we may end up that there's not been a final decision about what to go to the congregation with, but I will say they've been bolder than I have. And I thought that was appropriate for right now, because frankly, I'm very bold about this. If it were up to me, I kind of always say, faith, let's just go forward. But I think responsibly, I wanted to make sure that these lay um, elders own this, because this is a hard call. And if we do this, it will be a bigger step of faith than we've taken to this point. It'll be an enormous, bold step. So people need to know, if they're not in it and they're not with us, and John talking about, one of the things we're pinning our hopes on right now is that offerings and gifts, tithes and offerings have been really good. And I will say that the participation rate's been lower. So the giving units, we've had a few fall off, which is not surprising because your outer band's fallen off. But our people have been really faithful. So the
Yeah.
elders are typically, I think people, they're not holding me back. We're together. We're all together. Brett, Laura, me, and then this group of lay elders, and Chris Clifford's been meeting with us lately. We're together on these things, and simply trying to be responsible. I do need you guys to know I was playing devil's advocate, but there's a lot of support on here too. A lot of people are just saying, how can we pray for the elder board? How can we support you? I want you to answer the hard questions though, because I think people need to know we're together on how we stand with this. One person said, are there legal liabilities? And I can answer that really quickly. We've discussed that a lot, and the answer is we don't know. If we take precautions, it's hard to imagine that a lawsuit would go anywhere. But you need to know that for a church, a lawsuit is press. It's terrible press. So it's not just a matter of whether you win or lose it. And then has Virginia given specific guidelines to churches? And the answer is yes, but not to us yet. They met with the other churches in the state. You guys don't, I think I did tell you about this, but they did meet with other pastors in the state. They want everybody on the stage masked. So imagine if we go back live, I will be preaching in a mask. The singers will be singing in masks if we follow the state guidelines.
It's hard to trumpet in a mask.
Very hard. It will change dramatically the kind of presentation we're doing virtually. They want only family units 6 feet apart in all directions at all times, hallways, bathrooms, parking lots. This is really hard to mandate. Not to say that, look, it's the First Amendment. I don't think we're going to get sued over this, but you understand. So those are sort of the questions. Everybody else is just saying they want you to know they're praying for you and supporting you. One person did say, Columbia's normal operation on a Sunday involves a ton, capital T, capital O, capital N, of volunteers. I'll add to that, many of whom are senior adults. Many of whom are senior adults. How much visibility into those volunteers do we have? And the answer is, we know that our volunteer pool would be way down. The possibility of going back exactly like we were with the same children's and preschool programs, much less student programs, et cetera, it's zero.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. So even if we reopened, we would look so incredibly different than we have looked until such time. And we're not saying by the way, I think I should answer for you guys, but you can answer for you. We're not saying there has to be a vaccine to go back. What we're saying is we are looking at steps to going back that makes sense under each given set of circumstances.
Well,
So you guys want to add to that? I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, because I know I've been firing off a bunch of tough questions, but I come to you guys as a member with you all.
Yeah.
I come to you as the wife of a worship leader who is there every Sunday with individuals who have been infected and have been in close contact. I come to you as someone who's coming to you on Wednesday nights and someone who daily is also trying to make these decisions. So to speak on behalf of most of the people I know, I don't think anyone thinks this is an easy decision for you guys, and none of us envy the position any of you guys are in, and we know how difficult it is. And we appreciate your understanding of how difficult it is for us to make the day-to-day decisions we need to make, just like you do, as well as comprehending what other decisions are being made for us, whether it's through our churches or our schools or our government and things like that. So I appreciate that you guys have been willing to let me ask you some tough questions, and they're not all coming from me. Some of them I'm playing devil's advocate too, but I do think it's necessary. And I'm glad that Jim was willing to have all of you guys on here tonight to talk about it, because it's complicated. And each of you are already making those own decisions for your own families. To have to now make that for other people is difficult. And maybe just, remembering that we're all doing the same thing, right? Like we're all trying to make our own individual decisions while also having to take the decisions of others, whether we're people with small children or older adults or whatnot. We're all in different situations. So I appreciate you guys being willing to be honest and open and transparent about the questions.
Well, let's let each of these people make one wrap up statement, and we could do this all night, but let's let them do that. I will say I went to them and said, I need you to draw lines in the sand for me. So these are I work for these people I work for the church, but these are my bosses. And accountability is all about me saying, you got to tell me you cannot do this, you can do this, you cannot do this, you can do this, because I don't want to make all these calls by myself. And when I did that, these people, that was the June 21st piece and other pieces that have come. I trust them. So let me just ask each of them to say, if you wanted the congregation to know one thing about where we go from here, what would you say? So we'll close with you, Brent, since you're the chair. So let's start with you, Robin. What would you say if you wanted them to know one thing, and what can they do for you?
Um, I really appreciate the offer, and I take it very seriously to pray. I think the more we pray together, and we let the Lord lead this, the stronger we will be, and the more we will keep the focus on Christ. And I think that's what we need to do. Um, I also I pray for our deacons and this elder board daily. I pray for Jim and all of his staff, because I really do. I know the Lord will bring this through. So, and to those who might have just a different opinion and to be pushing maybe uh, for something different than what they see happening, I appreciate that too, because that just shows how much all of us love Colombia. And so I just close with that.
David?
Well, I would reiterate the desire that we all be humble. And well, I certainly, like Robin, want to know where people's minds and hearts are, if they have concerns, if they feel very strongly about a direction we should take. I want to know that. I'm happy to talk it through with people, but let's approach that conversation with humility. And let's remember that the church doesn't exist just for its own sake. It exists for the world around us. And so we all need to be concerned about how are we presenting ourselves to the world? What's the message that we're conveying, intentionally or not, through our words, through our actions? And again, that comes back to humility in a sense. We're not just thinking about ourselves.
John?
Yeah, very, very similar. We are a church body, we are a family, and just like a family in a house, there may be some arguments and maybe disagreements, but to remember that people are watching and that we need to be mindful of that, and try and do what's best for the entire body. and to stay humble about that, and to know to not try and push our own thoughts about this on other people, because we want to use this as a positive and not have this divide our family, divide our church. And so, while we can bicker about it, maybe internally or with love and kindness to one another, to just be mindful that of the weaker brother, and that they're watching and they're listening.
Yeah, Mandy.
I would just say that remember that we love you. We love you all, and we are trying to make the best possible decisions and take every feeling and thought into account. And just we ask for patience and continued prayer.
Bruce.
Well, I suppose I would mention two things. One is, for those who maybe they've not expressed an opinion, please always do let us know, let Jim know, because every opinion that it's expressed is important. It's something we have to consider. But also, I would say, think about that time, whenever it is that you individually walk back into Columbia, that first time, whenever it is, think about how that needs to be. You need to be part of making that a welcoming experience for anyone who comes in. The person with the strongest of faith or the weakest of faith. A newcomer who's just walked in the door that day should feel comfortable being among us and knowing that they're cared for, and that we as a church have done everything we can to take care of them. We thought about them. We care about their safety. We care about their spiritual well-being. We care about them in their entirety when they walk in there, and just try to keep that in mind. What does it look like for us to each try to make that happen?
Okay, Brent, you're the chair. You get the closing words. So
Yeah, I would embrace everything that's been said by the other elders. I think it's right on target. Let me conclude with something of a benediction. I did this with the elders meeting a couple of weeks ago, and it's a benediction that was penned by Fred Craddock, a great preacher and teacher of a generation ago, and I think that it's good for the elders to hear these words, and good for all of Columbia as well. So this is the Craddock benediction too. As you go, live simply, love generously, care deeply, speak kindly, listen reverently, work diligently, pray daily, and then leave the rest to God. Amen.
it's a good word. I want to read one comment that is sort of significant of a bunch that have come in. So one person said, "Thank you, elders. Columbia is transformational in large part because of great leaders like each of you." And there are like 10 more like that. So you should know of the huge support for you. And I feel that too. People have been so supportive and loving. Even people who disagreed, in my opinion, have been loving in the way they've done it. And the sun setting is setting on David Stoner. And so we need to close out this meeting. And all of these people, I can't get maybe I'll get the next group of elders on the screen next time. It's too many on the screen, but
Yeah.
all of our elders are like this. They're just humble and faithful, and it's so much fun to work with you guys. So could I just close in prayer, and we'll close out the night. Father, I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to work with these men and women of faith, and for the way they strengthen my faith, and for the way when I'm weak, they are stronger. And when I uh, have a rare moment of courage, they rise to the challenge. And for the privilege of serving together, because it is emblematic of the way we all serve together at Columbia. And Lord, we all have our secret fears that things won't be the same, and our secret fears that the church, something could happen to it. And as a leader, I wake up many nights in the middle of the night in a panic about what's going on. And then you calm my spirit through your Holy Spirit. And I thank you that these leaders care so much. They wake up apparently, as they are saying, in the middle of the night too, and worry about the same things. Lord, protect and preserve your people. Your church is not a building. It is not a place. Columbia is not a building. It is not a place. We are Columbia wherever we are and wherever we go. And Lord, I believe that you intend to reset something here and to teach us something we had to know. So help us to change the question from when we will be back to who we will be when we get back. I pray this in Jesus' name and for his sake. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for your time, guys. And thanks
Thank
for
you,
everybody who
everyone.
stayed on extra
Thank
time
you.
for Soul
Thank you.
Cafe. And thank you, Aaron, for
Yeah.
time. Sun's setting on you back there too. So
I know I've got my light. And remember January's sermon series. It's helpful for all these conversations. You did providentially set us up for how to have critical conversations. So
somebody called me this week and said, you need to teach us how to stick together across political barriers. And I'm like,
Didn't I just preach on that?
it shows you nobody remembers what I preached. Okay, you guys have a great week. We'll see you next time on
Have a
Soul
good night,
Cafe.
guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank